We are here. It is Wednesday as of the recording of this video, and it's finally time to do this Netherwalker album, Odyssey of Respair album review. I'm stumbling over my words because I have been ill, my friends. I feel mostly better now, but I think it was COVID because I have this lingering cough that will not go away. Now, I'm excited to do this because people that, this is a continuation of my album review series that has been very popular. People have been really enjoying it. And essentially what I do, if you're new to the channel, my full-time job, 6 days a week, really 7, but 6 days a week, is I teach people how to do crazy metal vocal noises, safely and efficiently so they don't hurt themselves, right? Well, in those videos where I'm usually reacting to and analyzing a song, I'm talking less about what I think about the song and more about how to do metal vocals. With these album reviews, I talk about what I think about the song. Do I like it? Do I dislike it? Is it good? Is it not really my taste, right? So this album has been heavily requested. And I know that sounds like something that people online say, right? A lot of people have been asking me. Nobody's been asking them, right? I've used that hook too. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But really, the comments across the channel, especially in my last upload, talking about what I wanted 2026 to look like, this has been heavily requested. So it's finally time. I tried to do it a little while ago. I felt too sick. So we're hitting it here today. And that's it. Last thing I'll say is I like to do these album reviews as blind as I possibly can, because I like seeing what this album can do for me purely on its own. Album artwork plus music, what's the impact mean for me? Because that's kind of what I'm trying to review, what that experience would be like or is like for me. And so I really don't know a whole lot about Netherwalker. I did do a vocal analysis of Battle of Tredem, so I have heard that song. And that's it. So let's go ahead and let's listen to Odyssey of Respair, which I didn't even know was a word until recently. Here we go.
Look out! There's goblins behind that tree! Don't worry, I got him! Fireball! Do you ever think we'll be heroes someday? When we grow up? I know we will. And we'll save the whole kingdom someday, together. Yeah, together!
Oh. Still on Prologue. All right. There we go. Okay, so I thought this was going to be the case. For the Excel aficionados amongst you, you've probably already noticed that I have merged and centered the cells next to track 1 and track 2. And the reason for that is because I anticipated, because this is very common, that either the prologue was going to be really short and kind of hard to judge on its own, or it was going to blend into track 2. And sure enough, it blends into track 2, and it's hard to judge on its own. I will say that the first time I tried to film this review a couple days ago when I was sick, I got to the part where it's like, pew, fireball. And that was my cue that was not the right day to film that review, because it just pissed me off. And I said to myself, Mark, you are normally a very open-minded, happy-go-lucky dude who's down for anything as long as it's cool. And so this reaction you're having right now, I think it has less to do with the music and more to do with the fact that you have a headache and you're exhausted and your throat hurts. So I said, okay, today's not the day. I'm not really going to say anything else, because I think I'm just going to lump the score of Prologue and Thy King Weeps for Mercy I think I'm just gonna lump them together. Although I will say one thing. So one of the few things I do know about this album, I know a couple things. One, I believe it's Netherwalker's first full release. And two, apparently it's about these three dudes. And this I just kind of heard through the grapevine talking to people. Apparently it's about these three dudes protecting their realm, these three knights or whatever. So that kind of makes me think, I will say the kid voices at the beginning, they kind of make me wonder if this is a game, like this album is like about kids playing make-believe and then turning, whoops, let me get my cell phone away from my interface. And then turning their game of make-believe into like, I don't know, like a metal album. That'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of a cool concept. My buddies and I, Ricky and Danny, growing up, they were cousins. Well, they're still cousins as far as I know. We had this game where we were secret agents and each one of us was a playing card. Like there was ace and club and I don't remember which one I was. Not hearts. Not me. No way. So anyways, that's all. It'd be interesting if that was part of the concept. I don't know if it is. Let's go ahead and let's keep going. Whoa. Sorry for picking up my phone, but I had to look up if Netherwalker has multiple vocalists. I don't think they do. Maybe like a guest feature here or there. But do they have two vocalists? I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out later. So that was kind of interesting. The reason, so after at the beginning of the song, the opening song, you know, we have a lot of really cool, interesting parts. But then we have that part where it slows down and he does what to me sounds like just like a normal vocal fry right up on the mic. And then tons of compression boosting, right? And then after that, so at the beginning we had what often basically a very loose but directional, often called false chord high. This is pretty much the same thing I do, like this, right? And then after that we have, and that's like kind of like an old school deathcore high sound that I love. I don't mean that as a jab, because like I said, it's very similar to what I do, and it's a sound. Trust me, as somebody who teaches vocals, it's a sound a lot of people are trying to learn right now. And hell yeah. And then after that, we all of a sudden got like all these modern, low, garbled sounds that were really cool. So it was an interesting switch. I will say, outside of that moment and outside of the highs, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty solid. I think for me, the prologue was kind of, I don't really know what that was trying to do. But I think that there was some there were certainly some good things going on here. I think the control on that fry was pretty interesting. We had like this, I don't know if he was doing that on purpose, or probably, I would imagine so, especially knowing what he does in Battle of Tredem. I'm going to give that a solid 7. I think it's a good way to start the album. It's a little bit of a confusing way to start the album, but that's what I'm going to give it. Let's go ahead and let's do Battle of Tredem, because this song is nuts. Yeah, so I'll talk about the end first, because that's the part that everybody's curious about. Now, if you watched my vocal analysis of it, you already know I like it. You already know I think it's cool. Like, is it over the top? Yes. Is it too much? A little bit. But it's also pretty cool, and there are some very cool sounds in there. And like, there's this one spot, I think in my vocal analysis, I say it reminds me of the "I'm a giraffe" kid, but it reminds me more of like the the meme. I don't know why, but the meme was this like song from like, it sounded like an old 80s commercials. That's why I love Nestle Crunch. And then somebody grabs their cat and then pulls the cat. It's like, ah, like, I don't know if you've ever seen that. But there's this one scream in that breakdown, I guess we'll call it, part that just reminds me of that. And like, listen, I'm not trying to say the whole end is a meme fest, that one part, like, but it also kind of makes me giggle a little bit, but it's also impressive. The reason I like it is this, because we got to make metal weird, y'all. We got to make metal weird. You know, one thing that will sometimes irritate me is that people will be out here and they'll be like, all metal music sounds the same. And then somebody comes out here and does something different. And they're like, that's too weird. And it's like, pick what you want and shut up. It's too weird. It's not different. It's like, well, make your own damn music and shush your mouth. Right? So yes, I can totally see why some people think the end of that song is too much, but I also think it's really cool. And I applaud the creativity for sure. And I recently saw a clip of him doing it live, and it was just as weird as you would think it was. And listen, post-viral cough. Listen, people are going to remember that show. Now, it's not just the ending of that song that's worth talking about, though. There are a lot of really cool things in the beginning, a lot of great pass off. Guitars are doing some amazing things. There was a spot where it sounded like the drums were doing something kind of like the kicks were kind of ahead of themselves, maybe. But there are a couple of things I want to mention. Number one is that something about the synths or the pads or the VSTs, I don't really know the correct term because I don't do audio production here. They sound a little old school. Like, one thing I'm really enjoying about this album is that it sounds like a really good quality first album mix. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have the polish that you in its production that you would expect, that you would get from like the recent, like Imperium Delirium, which was like Dave Otero and I think Blake Mullins. One of my students told me recently that Blake Mullins did some production work on Flying the Black Flag. Right. So it doesn't have like that high level of polish, but it does not at all sound like if somebody was to say like, oh, it sounds like a first album, that would be kind of like a veiled insult. But I don't mean that here. Like, to me, this sounds like a first album mix that, like, however they allocated that budget, whatever it was, they did the absolute best with it that they were going to do, because it sounds great. But you can hear little mistakes. Maybe mistake isn't the word. I don't want to say mistake because that sounds bad, and it's not bad. But like a hard cut, like the vocal line will be cut off or something. But overall, if we're talking just enjoyment, I'd give it an 8. I really like that song. I really admire what they're trying to do. Yeah, a little bit of it is meme worthy, but are we not allowed to laugh in metal? Electric Callboy would say, yes, you are. Yes, you are. All right, let's keep going. calm it down. Just kidding, don't. So so I'm going to say two things. One of which will make you think that I should not have given it an 8. But I disagree. So the first is that I think that one of the main reasons I'm giving that song an 8 is because it was interesting the whole way through. It felt like a longer song, but I never felt bored. And to my ear, they didn't. So the song had like a pretty consistent level of aggression all the way through. And as much as I love and have built my career around metal music, metal songs that have the same consistent or consistent aggression across the whole thing can get pretty boring, right? Because it's like, we get it, you're mad. But with this, I didn't get bored. And often a solution is to use like ambience, right? So what you can do is you can do like tremolo picking in the background, just barely audible, moving around to just change like that subconscious feeling of the song. Or you can use pads and just verb them out and push them back, whatever you want to do. And I didn't really hear a lot of that here. So they managed to keep it interesting without having to lean on some of the tools that frankly, we in Kardashev have used before. Right? So, and a lot of other, we didn't invent anything, right? So that's the first point. The song was interesting enough that I didn't get bored, right? The last thing is one thing that's actually amplifying my enjoyment of this album is, again, all of those little editing edges I'm hearing, the rough edges on the editing specifically. And so here's something that I want to, here's something that you have to think about vocally. And it's going to sound like I'm making a critique. And I guess technically I am, but I don't feel like I am because I kind of like hearing it. So let's say you're going to have a song. And in your song, the guitars are going to cut. They're going to go. Brrr, brrr, bum, brrr, bum. And there's going to be like silence in between them. So, your guitarist is really going to work on that mute. Maybe they'll have a buddy like hitting like the volume knob or something. No, I'm kidding. We wouldn't do that. That would mess up the sound. Realistically, what they do is they try to make it clean as possible and then chop it up in post, right? We've all done it. We'll all do it again. You as the vocalist have to think about how your vocals are going to interact with that compositional goal. What do I mean by this? So one thing we have to think about as vocalists is our offset. The way we finish the vocal. There were some parts in there, I can't remember exactly where he was using a very slushy, very airy vocal. This is a vocal style where you intentionally go while you're doing your vocal. Now my throat is all gobbled up, so let's see if it's not. I'll just do like a basic false chordy thing, which by the way in this album, so cool to hear so much false chord representation in this album, you know what I'm saying? I'm being a little silly. But like if I take like a false chord, which again, all my vocals in this album review are gonna kind of sound glonky because I've been coughing like almost nonstop for like 6 days. But if I do like a normal false chord, let me lean into it. So that's just like a basic false chord. I can intentionally make it a little slurry, go like while I do it. And that can give kind of a cool tone, but you're going to have this puff of air at the end. Right? So you either have to cut that off really hard with your lips, or your engineer, your producer, is going to cut that part of the audio, and you're going to hear that get cut. And so in a lot of those spots where that was happening, you could hear the vocal track really hard cut, right? Now, that's normally something you don't want to be there, but I feel like these vocals are really like not super produced, right? And what I mean by that is I feel like I'm hearing really pretty close to what he put. Like I'm sure there's a compressor, like I'm sure we're using the basics: compression, EQ, little reverb, little delay, right? It's the salt, pepper, garlic. It's the basic seasoning package of vocal production. Right? But I hear like, I feel like when listening to this, there's only the amount that needs to be on the vocals to make them sit in the mix. Right? And I actually am enjoying that quite well. So the fact that I feel like when I listen to this album, I'm hearing like a really promising first release, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Right? So yeah, 7, 8. I promise I would rate an album low. I promise I would, but so far y'all are suggesting good albums. So let's do Sea of Sirens. Here we go.
Decided. You will die.
Okay, so Sea of Sirens is pretty cool. I don't know what I'll give it yet. So a couple interesting things. So it kind of lost me in the second half a little bit, and not because anything like any of the parts were necessarily bad, but because I felt like we were stopping and going a lot. We were stopping and going a lot. Speed up, slow down, kind of before I could really settle into the parts that I was hearing. Now that's not to say that music that's jarring can't be good, right? You can write music that is very jarring, never lets the listener sit still, to great effect. I mean, that's basically what the whole genre of Thal is, right? And then you got bands like Carbomb doing all sorts of asynchronous, highly hard to predict, very difficult to count stuff. So I'm not saying like all songs I have to feel like I always know what's happening next. It's not that at all. I just felt kind of like there were a lot of ideas that could have been further committed to in the second half of the song, right? Now, interestingly enough, there was one part where it was right after the first boom 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 part, the first ambient part, when the tremolo picking or the blast beats come in, and I believe it's some tremolo picking. It sounded very black metal. I was sitting here and I was like, that kind of sounds like something Kardashev would write. That kind of sounds like something my band would write. I was like, I even found myself singing little like writing little vocal melodies over top of it, because that's what I would do in Kardashev. I would clean sing over like the black metal part. So obviously there were some parts that I liked there, right? But I just kind of found myself getting a little lost here and there. Now, also with this song, the first half was dope as hell though. The first half I really enjoyed. So I don't want to let the last half, color my experience too much. I'm going to give it a 7. 6 is too close to 5. I feel more comfortable with this being closer to an 8. Anything lower than a 7, I don't think is enough. There were some mic proximity moments where I feel like, and I get it, like you kind of sometimes want that muffly, like up on the mic, like, type of sound. But I don't know. I feel like there were some takes there where homeboy could have backed up like 3 or 4 inches, maybe. That's just me though. That's just me. Every time I'm gonna do a new vocal, like switch up vocals, I always like reset how far. I generally start. I'll either do sometimes like like that sort of thing, or like an open hand, not like spread out as far as I can go, and I just kind of get like roughly there, and I count that as my starting point, and then I try to maintain the same distance through the take, which it can be difficult if you're sliding through different things. But anyways, Eyes of Obscura. Obscura is a cool band.
My lord, a message.
You may speak.
We have received word from the Obscura. The prince and his band of peasants, they have found the oracle in the Siren Sea.
They are mistaken to listen to that old hag.
Yes, my lord. They are foolish indeed. It appears she has sent them on a hunt for a powerful ancient relic, guarded by the Crystal Knight.
Relying on an old children's tale. How pitiful.
It is rather embarrassing indeed, sire. The Obscura have spotted them on the outskirts of Sedora, where they have stopped to rest. It seems they are planning to head through the wretched city to look for the relic in the mountains. What shall I do, my lord?
Send the Dark Legion. Let Sedora take its toll, and the survivors be brought to me in chains. I must make an example of them. They will suffer.
As you wish, my lord.
So that was dope. That was cool as hell. So people who have watched the channel for a long time know that I was playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons from like 2017 to like 2022. Really up until my son was born, and then the D&D was gone. Also, people moved and everything. but that was sick. So I was the group's forever DM. And if you've never played Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop games, what that means is that when you play a tabletop game, there's one person who is the DM, Dungeon Master, sometimes called GM, Game Master, and that person facilitates the game. So they roughly tell the story. They narrate the characters, they keep basic track of the rules, and they create cool experiences and opportunities for their players to play out these cool fantasies, right? And what that means is you're voicing a lot of NPCs. Now, to be a good GM, you don't have to do the voices, but you can, and people love it. And so I had all of these like little voices. I had a goblin which hopefully the name isn't a bad word in some language, but his name was his name was Chota, and he was very small. And the characters, he joined the party, and I actually bought crickets, like crickets to eat, chapulines, which if you've never had them, they're really good. And he would eat and he'd eat during like combat and stuff. And so what I used to do as the forever DM is I would you can find these are public. If you go to YouTube and just type in Mark Garrett, there's a channel just called Mark Garrett, and it's just a dumping grounds for me. I'm not trying to do anything with it. Maybe I'll make it my video game channel. Probably not. Maybe. And there's just like shitty video game clips that I just took to like send to friends and stuff. They're not good. You're going to watch that and be like, man, Mark's not very good at video games. And I'm going to tell you, I know that. As much as I play, I should be better. But anyway, one thing I would do is I would make these supplemental audio clips. So when my players got to like a really cool part in the story, I would have this and I'd play it. And this sounded like what I was doing, just way better than any that I ever did. So I got mad respect for this. That was really cool. I hope that we have at least one more of these on the album. I'm going to give this, I mean, it's kind of hard to rate it because it's not a song per se. This album has stuff on it that's not like, can I rate that as a song? I don't know. Listen, maybe it's not that deep. Give it an 8 and move on. Servant to Instinct. Here we go. it's going to be interesting to see 6 months, 10 months in the future, if being right up on the mic, because that's what it sounds like a lot of the time, becomes kind of like a sought after sound. If that happens, I'm not against it. It is something that hits my ear. Now, listen, maybe he's not right up on the mic. Maybe he's got beautiful proximity and this is like some grit effect being added, or maybe they're like intentionally like making it sound a certain way. But as it sounds right now, to me, there are a lot of spots where I wish he would have backed up off the mic a little bit. I feel that's just, if you're going to be up on the mic, what it's going to do is it's going to garble the sound. It's going to make everything kind of have this like blown out sound. And I feel like if you want your voice to sound blown out, just do a take with good proximity and then do that in post. But then, you know what? Maybe get up on the mic and now it's technically more organic. I don't know. I don't really have a whole like a whole lot of opinion on it, even though it sounds like I do. But it'll be interesting to hear if that becomes a sound that people are actually going for. Like they get up on the mic too close purposefully for that up on the mic sound. Who knows? Is it wrong to do that? I get bored with those questions. Mark, is it right or wrong to cup the mic? Well, unless someone's going to arrest you or there's a good Lord up there who's written some commandments, maybe it's more or less optimal. Right or wrong? That's a moral question. We're just making cool noises here. Now, that being said, I thought Servant to Instinct was a cool song. Got a little long for me. I did feel once the guitar solo part kind of started coming in, I found myself getting lost, but there were some really cool moments where the guitar would do a quick flourish and then the vocals would come in and do them after, and we'd have like this like bend going on in the guitar. So yet again, this was a song where there was a lot of very heavy aggression, but not like I'm halfway through the album and I don't feel tired. And if you've watched my album reviews up until now, you know two things. One, your boy doesn't really like guitar solos. And two, when an album's like 14, 12, 14 tracks, I look at it and I'm like, oh, but I'm not really having that listening fatigue right now. And it's been a long day. So, I did find myself feeling a little distracted. I'm going to give that one a solid 7.5. It's my channel. I do what I want. Leave me alone. I don't know what's next because I can't read it. Oh, Tavern. It's right there, Mark, you dingus. Dingus is the way you say that word. Tavern, and I think it's Tavern and Frost Troll. These are two that people were like, you got to check these out. So let's get excited for Tavern. Here we go. I already love it. God. So before I mention anything, I think that was a great song. There are two spots in that song, one right at the end, where, in fact, I'm going to go back a little bit. I want to see if you can hear this. What are we at? We're at 26:57. Let's go to 26. Let's go to 26 as close to even as I can get it. 26:02. Okay. The whole album kind of gets quiet and muffled and then opens up, and it doesn't sound like an automated EQ thing, because sometimes you'll do that. You'll have an EQ like cut all the high frequencies, and then as the intro plays, it starts letting in the high frequencies. It did that earlier, just minus, and it almost sounds like an automation error. Like they had a bunch of like automated stuff on the tracks, which you did as you do, and there was a whoops on the export. Tell me if I'm crazy. I'll do this when it happens, and tell me if that's supposed to happen. It didn't ruin the song for me at all. Actually, I'm not gonna dock any points for it, but tell me if you hear what I'm hearing. I'm gonna say forget it. I'll find it later. I'm gonna scooch ahead towards where Frost Troll starts. Anyway, I don't know if that was supposed to happen or not. If anybody else is hearing what I'm hearing, let me know. But other than that, I thought that was a great song. I love how it starts off with this like sort of King's Questy. Like the album has such like old school video game moments, like PC games from the 90s, and then like an RPG from like the PS2 era. And then just goes into like this stupidest, not stupid in a bad way, just like gratuitous heavy section. The whole thing was really cool. I talked a lot about the other things, so I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. I would give that a solid 8. I really like that. I can see, I think, I'm going to leave it. I think Tavern might be my favorite so far. Anyways, let's hang out with the Frost Troll. Here goes Frost Troll. Oh, we were right at the beginning.
stand against the forces of evil.
Yes!
I call unto you, swing thine fists!
That was interesting. That song had a combination of moments that I really loved and then moments where I was like, that's kind of cool. It definitely got a lot of reaction out of me, right? I don't think I've ever heard a song use medieval combat sounds as a sound effect. We've all heard like a song use guns as a part of the song, like the band War from a Harlot's Mouth. They have a song called "If You Want to Blame Us for Something, Blame Us for This Song" or something like that, where they have these gunfire sounds like this, and then the guitars go. It's pretty cool. And I've never heard like the pass between like the vocals and then the swords going ting 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 ting. I thought that was kind of cool. This album is hitting a spot that I actually think that is very interesting. It's really hard for me to describe. It's not cheesy, but it's self-awarely playful, I suppose is a good way to say it. And I really like when stuff does that. That's part of the reason I'm such a big fan of Star Trek, for example. Although, like, listen, if you watch, I'm rewatching the original series right now, and I adore it, but like, holy cow. Like, I am a TOS the fanboy, but I will also fully admit that some of those episodes are just like, yeesh. I still like them, but they're terrible, right? But they're so good. That's not what I'm talking about, though. What I'm talking about here is like maybe Deep Space Nine level self-awareness, right? Where it's like all really well done, really expertly done, and sometimes there's a little tongue-in-cheek jokingness there, like the breakdown call out, swing thine fists, like, come on, like, it's pretty obvious what that's trying to do. So I think that this song live, oh my god, I think live it would probably be a 9. Listenability, I feel like this is a song that I would listen to all the way through 3 or 4 times, and then I would just kind of like zoom forward to hear those moments that I'd like. So I'm going to fall back on a 7 on this one. But overall pretty good. I'm pretty sure. So, but if ever you see me on my phone with these, there's one of two things going on. One, I got a message from daycare and I'm a father, so I have to check that in the moment because you never know what's happening. And like, honestly, if anybody's like, don't check on your son while you're doing a video, just unsubscribe, get out of here. I'm a dad before I'm anything else. But the other is just looking up information. I was like, it sounds like there's a guest vocalist on here. And I guess there is. Finn Kapnick. I'm not really sure. Finn Kapnick. What is he from? Featuring Finn Kapnick. I feel like I should know that name. I don't know. Is this it? Oh, this account is private. Well, China Lake and Wet Job. Hell yeah. China Lake has 1 post. Very cool. And Wet Job has no posts. Okay. So let me tell you something. Finn, do more stuff. You sound great. Yeah, overall, let's listen to Destiny Will Decide. Eventually I'm going to go into more details on the vocals themselves here, but I keep getting distracted by the songs. Overall, this is shaping up to be an 8. We would have to have some pretty low ranking songs. We'd have to have some pretty low ranking songs to pull it. And again, I promise I would rate an album. Listen, there are tons of albums that I think are really not that great. They exist. I have some of them on my shelf over here because I like the artwork or whatever. And so someday we're gonna get an album review where I don't rate something very highly, but it might not be today. But you know, if we have 4 or 5 bombs for the rest of the album, maybe. All right, here we go.
The legend.
Oh, hell yeah.
Night. A tale told through the ages, yet remains shrouded in mystery. Very little is known of his existence.
I want to know.
And no mortal eye has ever beheld his visage, nor the shimmering crystal armor that he dons. Some wise scholars speculate that he is a half-god, a being of mortal flesh, imbued with divine power. Yet others believe he hails not from this mortal coil at all. Centuries have drifted by like the sands of an hourglass, and countless of the mightiest warriors from our world had ventured into his treacherous dungeon. But alas, not a single soul has emerged to recount their tale. And now, for the warriors foretold in the prophecy, it appears they have no choice but to confront him. They cling to the hope that he possesses the key to vanquish the encroaching darkness. Their people, the kingdoms of our realm, and even their sworn enemies place their faith in them. Everything rests upon this moment, the hero's quest to defeat the Crystal Knight.
So, here's how I would play out that scene. I love these little D&D. I'm giving it an 8. I don't care what anybody says. Here's how I'd play it out. Okay, if I were the DM and that were my clip, at this point, it would be early on in the campaign. Okay, my players would have, for some reason, of course, found themselves in a dungeon. I would probably make it something completely separate than what they're gonna find to exemplify the surprise. So I might make this like an abandoned wine cellar that goes on a little too far. It's not like they find a trapdoor to something else. They're just like, how long does this wine cellar go? Like, how many twists and turns? How many rooms of wine do we need, right? And the farther they go and the deeper they go, the less trust they have, right? Well, they get to the end, and I probably wouldn't have a whole lot of combat at this point. Maybe some dire rats. I wouldn't have traps. I would have maybe some precarious environments, right? Because I want them to feel curious, suspicious, but not afraid yet, right? And then what I would do is at the end, in a room behind some wine barrels, right? You just let them pass their passive perception. Just give it to them, right? Because this is part of the story. Behind there, a twinkling of light, maybe somebody would smell something like, oh yeah, no, that's what it would be. That's what it would be, right? You notice that the smell of the wine cellar has become a bit more foul, rotted leaves inside of fetid dirt, something like that, right? And they're like, oh, well, why does this room smell worse? Well, because behind there is a marionette corpse, right? There's the body of somebody. Maybe it's the person you were looking for. Maybe it's somebody non-conspicuous. You figure that out on your own, right? But it's this marionette corpse. And what they find is that it's hooked up to the ceiling. And so it looks like maybe he's still alive, right? And they're like, oh God, we got to get him down. We got to get him down. Well, what would happen is there would be a lever or a button or something. And then when they interact with it, it turns out he's not still alive. What it was a little glimmer of magic. This corpse was enchanted to tell a tale. And then all of a sudden he would, let me tell you the legend of the Crystal Knight. some say that he is a demigod, and right, and it would just be this corpse, and then and then if you had somebody that had speak with dead, he could tell you how he got there, right? Then they could actually speak with him. He'd be like, well, they'd be like, why are you a marionette? And he'd be like, because I owed money or something. I don't know. Anyway, Crystal Night is the name of this next track. Here we go. Oh. I hope this becomes a lore band. That'd be cool. As somebody who is in, you could say, a lore band myself, I think it's cool when bands have been telling a story for a long period of time, or at least telling stories that take place within the same universe. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think it's cool how they pulled in the prologue. Makes you think something bad happened, right? I think this song was pretty solid. There are a lot of things vocally that I'm really enjoying here. He does one thing I really like is when a guttural ends with like this oit, oit sort of sound. I want to see if I can do it here. We'll see if the anatomy will allow. If I do like a kind of like that, something like that, I think is pretty cool, right? And I really think this guy is smart with his like chopping in and out on his high vocals. He's really, one thing that can be kind of tough to do with high screams, once you can even do the scream, once you have like the is making the syllables distinct without them sludging together. So let's say you have, I'll say, and I'm going to use something without any consonants that let's use like a Y, because it's easier to make your syllables distinct when you have like P's and D's and T's and K's. But if you have Y's and R's and L's, right, it's going to be a little bit different. So let's say ay, right? A lot of times you'll hear a vocalist and they'll be like, hear how you can kind of hear those different syllables and they sort of slide through each other versus, again, let's see how well I can do it. In this album, we have like a clear, you can really hear each of those syllables. And that really is quite important when you have metal that's doing a lot, right? You can be a lot sludgier when you have like really down tempo open stuff. And honestly, sometimes you need to, sometimes you should. But when you have so much technically going on, if you don't sound clean and concise, often it's going to sound contrasting. So I hate to sound like a broken record. I promise I'm not trying to just give eights. Say 8. Name the reference. Say 8. Say 8. Name the reference and you'll get a cookie. All right, let's do the Elden Stav. Stave? Stav. It has Elden in it, so I'm probably going to like it. All right, here we go. I already like this intro. The sound matches my background. Okay. Concise. Very how how very Shadow of Intent of them. So I kind of have mixed feelings on that track. First and foremost, like it was a cool instrumental. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, am I gonna write my own vocal parts for that? Absolutely. I don't know if I'll post them anywhere. Maybe I will. After I did the Imperium Delirium review, I wrote and posted, which I was a little nervous I was gonna get in trouble for that, but nobody seemed to care. My own vocal version of that song. And so like for like I'm probably gonna do that. Well, do my on and off. I'll post. Point is, I'm getting off track. As an instrumental, it was really cool. But I'm also like, if I'm listening to, so by the time we get to this part of the album, if we're gonna have an instrumental, I'm kind of wanting to hear the instruments flex their muscles in a way that they either can't or don't when there is a vocalist, right? So again, on Imperial, I think it's Apocalypse Painting. I think that's the instrumental. The instruments, they do a lot of really difficult patterns that, take it from me, were very difficult to write vocals over. Eventually you figure it out and you're like, oh, that's not so hard. But they were doing these really interesting patterns that sounded pretty good without vocals and sounded maybe even better without vocals, right? Here, I feel like they did instrument. I don't know. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know that they were doing anything that they would not have been doing anyway without vocals. Am I making any sense? I don't know if that's necessarily a problem. I just kind of was waiting for them to be like, okay, the vocalist is sleeping. Let's do all that stuff that we wish we could normally do. But it was cool. Like, I definitely enjoyed listening to it. I love the intro. I love the sort of neoclassical vibes. I'm going to give that one a 7.5 because it's not bad that they didn't flex. And again, it's a first time listen. Maybe I'll listen to the song again and be like, oh, I missed that whole part. Mark, you idiot. It's not bad that they didn't, like, you know, flex those muscles, but I kind of wish they would have. For Princess Elizabeth, we fly. You boys gotta pee. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Here we go. Okay, I'm sorry guys, I didn't like that song. Um and I hate to say it. And if the Netherwalker boys are listening, if they watch this, which chance who knows, I'm going to talk about why I didn't like it. But I want you to keep doing what you do best. I would go as far as to say I found certain parts of that song kind of hard to listen to, and I'm going to explain why. I think that for me, what they were going for was not quite achieved. And it was a combination, which this can be a great combination, an amazing. One of my favorite bands, Lantloss, does this very well, especially in the band song "These Nights Were Ours," which is this combination of hope and major key sounds and darkness and minor key sounds, right? And it can be done expertly well. Here, there were some things getting in the way of that. The first was that I think that up until this song, I was really enjoying the quality level of the like orchestra they're using. Like it's clearly like it's not a full orchestra. Who would pay for a full orchestra? That's ridiculous. But you can pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for plugins and such that will make it sound as close to a full orchestra as possible. And I actually think if they had done that in this album, it would have kind of been a mistake, because one thing up until this song I've been enjoying is the fact that it has this retro vibe. This album has this retro vibe of like old school video game and D&D and deathcore. And I think that they've done really well. But up until this point, it was really tough, because what they were doing was they were doing what sounded like a violin with these really high notes that, with the quality of the plugins or whatever the term would be that they're using, is just really shrill. The violins going, and I'm just like, please relax. And then at the end, there was this sound which sounded almost like tripping like an alarm at a house, like a beep, 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 really, really fast sound that would just kind of come in and out sort of randomly. It seemed random to me. Maybe upon a later listen, if I listened to it again, it would make a little bit more sense. And then I think in addition, like having screams over positive sounding moments is awesome. I do it all the time. But having them so raw and compressed and just kind of plopped on top of like those moments where you're in the clouds, to me, didn't feel as meshed as I would have preferred. And I found it to be a little bit grating. And then finally, there was so much building up into build up, into more build up, into more build up, into more build up. I feel like this song, now this may be the fan favorite. And again, Netherwalker guys, if you're watching, much love to this album. It's probably going to end with a pretty high score. And if you loved writing this song, you should write more of this song, because I'm just some fuck on the internet, right? But it felt like it kind of got away from them in the compositional stage. So for me, this song's a pretty heavy pass. What the hell did I just do? I'm honestly gonna give it a 5. I really, that is not for me. If you love this song, if this is your song, you love it and you play it loud. But that's not for me. That's not for me. Let's see how the album ends with Army of Darkness. I think yeah, there we go. I must have hit 5 when I was on YouTube, and I think it brought me back. Okay, yeah, here we go. Let's find Army of Darkness here. Are you there yet? No, I got so lost. Sorry everybody. This is terrible. I'm over here being like, it sounds like I got away from him, and I can't even control YouTube. I'm firing myself. Okay, I'm gonna mute it and then see, because I think, yeah, there we go. Okay, last track on the album. Here we go.
Forever.
Uh-oh. It did it again.
Dixit et libermonium, setum spirus virum, per mortem meam orbis resurgit.
And that was Claire Obscura. It's a great game. And that was Odyssey of Respair. Oh, my camera's over here now. Odyssey of Respair by Netherwalker. I didn't like love that one either. I would rate it higher for sure, but I feel like here, let's just go ahead and because that's just going to distract me. Those thumbnails are going to distract me. Here, what we'll do, we'll just do this. Womp. So personally, I thought there was a lot going on in that song, and I kind of felt like it wasn't all moving together. There were a lot of really cool moments, like when the high vocals started kicking in, when we had those like sweeping arpeggios. All that stuff was really cool and was really strong. I also like how so when I first was planning to listen to this album, I was wondering, like, is this going to be 14 tracks of Battle of Tredem? Because if so, I cannot handle that. Even though I like that song and I will stand for that outro any day. I was like, man, if it's 14 tracks of that though, I don't know. And they didn't really bring it back till there. And I think that was a smart move compositionally. You're waiting the whole album for that payoff and then they give it to you at the end. Smart move. I love that. Great writing. But there were a lot of moments where like the vocals, again, upon another listen, maybe it would make more sense, but the vocals kind of sounded off time. And the movement of the strings and the chug of the guitar, like maybe it worked mathematically, maybe technically it all snapped to grid, but it wasn't moving together cohesively. There was just a lot going on, and it kind of seems like maybe this song was written as in like, okay guys, we gotta write the big huge outro, and they really leaned into doing that. There definitely were some moments that were like enjoyable to listen to, and if somebody, you know, if I was in the car with somebody and they were like, oh, let's put on Army of Darkness, I'd be like, you shouldn't watch movies in the car, haha. But I'd be like, yeah, put it on, and I would enjoy it and I'd have a good time. But I do think that, kind of unfortunately for me, the last 3 tracks of this album together kind of do create for not as strong of an outro, not as strong of an album end as I would have preferred. Now, what I did like in that song was a lot of the stuff the vocalist was doing. Again, we had those really articulate, or I should say punctuated, syllabically punctuated. Does that even make sense? High vocals. A lot of the slurry, sludgy movement of airflow on like a low, you know, like a lot of that sounding really cool. a lot of really really almost like Will Ramosy mids in the way he would like wow 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 around the vocal. There was just a lot of it. It wasn't until what felt like the halfway point of the song where the song got a chance to breathe a little bit, but the vocal stuff being done was pretty dang cool and pretty well done. So overall, final verdict, album gets a 7 for me. I think there's a lot of promise here. I think for anybody who is in love with this album, it totally makes sense to me. I think that more of this album is really badass than is not. I would love to see where this band takes the next album. A little bit more polish, maybe keep those roots of that retro sound, but maybe clean up some of the production, look at the way you're cutting some of the vocals, make different choices about where the vocals are sitting in the mix in like big open sections. But again, I think that this is an incredibly, maybe these guys all have like huge metal pedigrees and I'm going to sound like an idiot. But again, I purposefully don't look up stuff because I want to know what this delivers to me on its own. But I think that this is an insane, this is exponentially better than Kardashev's first release. I'll tell you that. Right. So like, I'll be humble. But I would love to see where they go next. Keep true to those roots of having like that retro meets D&D meets metal vibe. I would love if this band just leaned into that more. Another thing I would really like, which would be really cool, is if this album, if Netherwalker, if their next release came with like a little mini D&D adventure with like videos that you could QR code. That would be sick. You could play along with the album. Oh, I don't know if D&D is getting less and less popular as time goes on, but or make your own system or like a comic book, just something. Because I feel like they're doing a lot of really interesting things with character and story here. Loved the little narrated tracks. I would listen to those on their own. I think they're really cool. So, needless to say, even though I kind of lost the album a little bit in the last part of it, I would say a whole lot here to be proud of, a whole lot here to love. Shout out, big thanks to the guys in Netherwalker for writing and releasing the album. Very excited to hear what you guys release next. And again, thank you all for watching this review. If there are other albums that you would like me to check out, please let me know in the comments below. And with that, as usual, I gotta go pick up my kid from grandma's. Many thanks, much love. I'm out.